Thank you, Talis, and thank you everyone who came to this session. I'm Kemal Pinarbasi from Spain, AZTI. It's a marine research institution in Basque country of Spain, like northern side of Spain. Personally, I am a Turkish boy who started his PhD in this institution. So we are trying to plan the northern side of Spain, but we don't have real MSP implementation in Spain until now. So we are in the process to develop it step by step. So I'm working with Dr. Ibon Galporsaro and Dr. Angel Borja in AZTI. So I will try to explain you what we are doing in Basque Country and what we are planning to do in Basque Country, northern side of Spain. So first of all, I want to explain where we are in Spain and in the map. Then I want to come some background information about Basque Country, and then background studies for MSP, what we are doing, what we have developed until now, environmental components, human activities, transboundary issues with friends, and then I will come up with what I'm working currently and the future, what we are planning in the area. So these are the exclusive economic zones in Europe, the countries, and you can see our country here, Spain, and we are there. So Basque Country is in the northern coast of Spain. We are not a big area, but our coast is already as large as some European countries. So it's an important area. And then when you come up with this figure, this future projection of Basque Country, if we can implement marine spatial planning in our area, what will it be there? So you can see a lot of activities in the area, but some of them are not there yet. But we are planning to put them step by step. So what do we have? For example, we want to plant offshore energy platforms. Currently we don't have, but we are planning on the suitability of the area. Or we want to put wave energy platforms. We want to deploy natural gas. And the main activity in the area, mostly artisanal fisheries and recreational fisheries. So fisheries is one of the most important activities in the area. But we have a lot of tourism activities in Basque Country. I live in San Sebastian. It's a beautiful city. And if you like to start surfing, you need to come to San Sebastian. So this figure is showing us the busyness of the area. In Belgian plan, it starts with busyness of the sea in North Sea. So this sea is also busy. So we need to plan the area. But how did we start planning process in Spain is more looking the environmental characteristics and human uses characteristics to know what's happening in the area exactly. So Basque Country, as I said, commercial fishing, recreational fishing activities, over 5,000 boats. So fisheries is an important activity in the area. And then what we want to put more, the new industrial activities, mostly marine renewable energy. Now we are in the wave part, but we will move to wind part in the future. And then offshore aquaculture. That's why we are in some EU projects. And then government is seeking diversification of the activities in the area. So, but no marine spatial plan is implemented. We just started. Directive transposition in progress. So what we did until now, background studies, environmental studies. So we checked seafloor mapping and characterization. So we know the character of our seafloor in Basque Country. Then we also checked habitat mapping. Each habitat in the area is mapped until now. So you can see the scientific publication under every map. Then we also checked habitat modeling. We checked the general geographical distribution of suitable habitats for our area, economically important habitats. Then we checked ecosystem services provided by benthic habitats in the north of Spain. And then we checked environmental status. So we have publications about it. So finally, biological valuation mapping. So we know which areas in our coast is valuable biologically. So there are some parameters. We are mapping the areas according to their biological value, of course, according to some calculations. And then after all these environmental components, at least we know some things about our area. We move on with planning background studies. We were in MESMA project as a case study. So development and implementation of a generic framework for implementation of ecosystem-based marine management, assessing uncertainty, and lessons learned from the application of generic spatial planning framework in Europe. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick when you come from south to Baltic side.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, it's a little bit cold from 10 to 2. So After environmental components, we came with the human activities. For us, okay, maybe it's not the busiest area in the world, but there are important human activities like fishery. And we checked the total fishing pressure by artisanal fisheries in the area, and we checked its effect on the other human uses in the area. Then we created suitability maps on wave energy according to parameters. Then also now we are working on the suitability map of wind energy in the area. Then, when we come up with aquaculture, we are in an EU project, Aquaspace. We are trying to select the best sites for aquaculture production, offshore aquaculture production. So we aim to create mussel farms in our area. And then actually it's a nice story that why we want to put aquaculture sightings is because mostly fishing price in the north side of Spain is higher than south part of Spain. So we need to support fishermen with an economic activity. So if we can implement aquaculture sites in our area, the profit from this activity will go to our fishermen to support their profit, their economic activity. So with 16 case studies around Europe, we are working on aquaculture siting. So how do we find the best location for aquaculture? We are trying to create a new decision support tool to see the best areas in our coastline. What is the best site for aquaculture? We call it cost and benefit analysis tool. It's a GIS-based tool. It's a software. We call it CBA tool. So we are trying to see if we implement aquaculture in one area, what can be the impacts in environment, what can be the gainings, economically earnings, and environmental impact, sociocultural impact. Then when we come to transboundary issues with Spain, in the north side of Spain, we can say that we have one neighbor, France, and we are trying to catch how to create synergies and then opportunities with friends. So it can be related with MSFD, it can be with common MPAs, and of course it can be generally with MSP. Until now, there are not a lot of projects between France and Spain in this subject, but I want to show you a map which is showing the fishing activity in the area. So this is our border with France. So you can see that there's a high activity in our coast, but actually continental shelf is really shallow. That's why our fishermen wants to go to northern part. So a lot of Basque or Spanish fishermen is fishing in the French area, and also French fishermen are coming to our area. Until now, it was not a big problem, but in the future, we believe that it can be a problem, so we should solve this conflict. So finally, what I am doing, I am checking the marine spatial planning decision support tools, working on marine spatial planning. So I want to create a new tool at the end of my research. So that's why I said, okay, let's start with a review of all decision support tools which was used in MSP implementation in the world. Then I started my review and I categorized all decision support tools that were used in real MSP implementation in the world, like Belgium, like Germany. So I'm trying to classify them according to their characterization, technical fields, user-related fields. So I'm trying to see what type of skills you need to operate a tool, what type of user group is using specific tool, what is the aim of use for decision support tools in MSP. And then finally, I'm trying to check in which MSP stages we use decision support tools. I just want to share one piece of my results that is showing the aim of use of decision support tools. It's showing that we are mostly using the decision support tools for site identification, tools like Marksan, assessment of environmental impact, tools like Invest, or communication like SeaSketch. But as an outcome, what I found out is that we don't use the tools for future projection. We don't use the tools a lot of times for socioeconomic analysis, and we don't use them for stakeholder involvement. That can be helpful. So I will continue my research on this direction to create a new tool which can provide these tasks, these benefits. So future work, we are planning to work on conservation and MPAs in the area. If it's transboundary, it can be better with friends. So assessment of conflicts of activities in the area. Now we are working on effect of artisanal fisheries and aquaculture. If we create an aquaculture area, so we should move the fishermen from this area. And how can we solve this conflict? They don't want to move from their place. So we are working on the conflict analysis. And finally, allocation of activities. aquaculture, now we are working, and renewables, especially explicit risk approach. What can be the risks about wind energy under marine spatial planning? So many things are going on in our area, but we still couldn't come up with a MSP plan, final plan. So all these things will help us, hopefully, to create a marine spatial plan for one region of Spain. And then hopefully I can come here in next years to provide our final plan to you and present it. Thank you very much for your listening. And yeah, thank you.
So we have noted that for the next forum there will be one presentation.
Thank you so much, hopefully.
Any questions to that? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jonas Paulson from the World Maritime University. Thank you for a nice presentation. I was wondering, how are the developments in the Basque Country compared to the rest of the regions of Spain? Is it far ahead or not? And also with France, who in France are you discussing with on or collaborating with on MSP issues? Is it a national level or local level or so? Two questions. Thank you.
Good questions.
Thank you so much. Yes, good question. Because Spain has different regions. There's Andalusia, there's Catalonia, we have Basque Country, and then actually until now the work was going on in regional level if it's not a European Union project. So we can say that in Basque Country and in Andalusian country with the Mediterranean coast, we are the leader regions, I can say, for the work, but still we have a lot to do. Now the central government has started the MSP process and they want to come all together with other regions and see what we have in Spain and how can we proceed. Because EU directive says that until 2016 we need to create authority. Until 2021 we need to create the final MSP plan, which we are a little slow when you compare with other countries. So yes, hopefully we will come up with all regions together. And the second question? France. France. So with France, our level of transboundary cooperation is in European Union projects. So mostly, yes, sometimes with local governments we are also agreeing about MPAs or environmental assessment, but now we want to improve it. For example, it's really interesting, but for tourism, we have a metro connection, underground connection between San Sebastian and then Hendaye, which is a French city, and two of them has touristic activities, but it's improving the connection between cities. So we really plan to improve this connection and then create new projects, which we need to create MPAs in our area and all the other activities. But until now, yes, just under European Union project level.
So it's still in the very beginning.
Yeah, I can say that.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Maria Lazis from Serbia. When you say that you communicate through the projects, on which authority level? Is that scientific, or what is the role in that project? Institution, governance, or scientific institutions?
Yeah, in our project, AZTI is a research institution which is in project funded by Basque government most of the time. So we are dealing with Basque government for our area now. But the governance type in this type of countries like Belgium, like us, like the federal governments, and then there's the central government, it's really complicated to approve the plan by Basque government and then come to central government. But yes, we are mostly working with Basque government, and then as research institution level, we are making the projects with the funding from Basque government.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your listening.
No more questions, then we note that we will come back to this.
Hopefully.
Sea in the coming future. But now we move to Celtic Sea. And I'm looking forward if there is someone from the Celtic Sea area. No? Yeah? Sorry.
Just something. We have sent the last presentation. I don't know if you have it.
Should be there.
Yeah, should be. Written the new one, so.
Can I check if it's the right one?
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's the good one. I'm sorry. It's good. Thank you very much. Hi everybody. I'm very happy to be here with my colleague Joseph, Kofi, Joseph, whatever you want, to talk about the challenges and opportunities for cross-border cooperation in the Celtic Seas and the intended activities of our project, the SIMCelt project. Okay, so first I go straight to the geographical context. Where are the Celtic Seas? Celtic Seas are the third OSPAR region. They include all marine water, inshore and offshore waters from the north of Scotland up to the west coast of Ireland and the west coast of France, of the coast of Brittany. So, some contextual factor. I've used this slide several times, so I know that some people have seen it already in this room. I think it's important to compare the context in the Baltic Sea region with the Celtic Seas. Upon Baltic MSP dialogue for the Baltic Sea has been engaged and reinforced since the European Union strategy for the Baltic Sea region. Baltic Sea countries have cooperated through their institution, VASAB, and the Working Group on Marine Spatial Planning to develop a common pan-Baltic vision for marine spatial planning and also common principles, methodology, and content for their marine spatial plan. You also have the practical experience of 3 pilot transboundary marine spatial plan. The situation in the Celtic Sea is different. Celtic Sea's countries have not developed yet a commonly agreed upon Celtic vision and objective for marine spatial planning. We do not have common principles and methodology for our plan. However, Celtic Sea's countries have engaged a cultural partnership through several transboundary projects. I'm thinking about the TPA and Celtic Sea partnership that have led to the conclusion of some recommendation and good practice for cross-border cooperation in the field of marine governance, but Joseph is going to tell more about this later in the presentation. So what are the challenges that are specific to the Celtic Seas? So just here a precision, Celtic Seas countries are the UK devolved administrations, so namely England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, and then we have Ireland and France. So here the challenges for MSP cooperation across border result from the difference in the time frames in the plan-making processes and the differences in policy priorities. Also, marine spatial planning has been mostly nationally oriented in our countries, with consultation on planning have been held on an ad hoc basis through the requirement of the ECA and Water Framework Directive. There's also different institutional and planning practices from centralized to decentralized MSP. Different system for data management. We do not have a protocol for data aggregation. However, some work have been done on data. As a component of the Celtic Sea partnership, the British Oceanographic Data Centre is now finalizing a metadata portal that is, however, focused only on the MSFD descriptor to support the monitoring of the descriptor under the MSFD directive. So I think it's important to be aware of the degree of advancement, the level of progress in the marine spatial planning system in each Celtic Sea country. So what you have to know is that all UK devolved administration, planning in this UK devolved administration must be consistent with the Marine Policy Statement and the Marine and Coastal Access Act. So the Marine Policy Statement is the policy framework that set the vision, shared vision and direction for all marine spatial plans in the UK devolved administration. So in England, marine management organizations have already adopted the East Inshore and East Offshore Marine Plan in 2014. A second plan for the Southwest East inshore and offshore marine waters is now under public consultation. Marine Scotland, the Marine Scotland Act and Marine and Coastal Access Act have entitled the Scottish Government to develop a national plan. This national plan has been adopted, as Rona Fergrief did mention this morning, in 2015. And regional marine spatial planning is now in progress, and the first pilot plan has been adopted for the Pentland Firth and Orkney waters in the north of Scotland. Northern Ireland and Wales, we do find the same piece of legislation. The Welsh National Marine Plan and the Sustainability Appraisal for the Welsh Plan have been published in 2015, and consultations are now in progress until mid-2017. So just Sustainability Appraisal, it's in the UK system, it's like strategic environmental assessment, but it's extended to the social and economic impact as well of strategic plan. In Wales, Northern Ireland, sorry, the draft plan is now under sustainability appraisal, and consultation will be held next year. So in Ireland, the situation is different. So the directive has been recently transposed by the regulation 2016. This regulation recognizes the competence of the Department of Housing. We don't have a marine plan yet, and our plan will have to be consistent with this document, Harnessing Our Ocean Wealth, which is basically a policy document that set the Irish visions for the use of the Irish maritime territory. In France, marine spatial planning is decentralized, so it will be implemented through the Maritime Front strategy document for each maritime front. So there will be a plan for each maritime front. And this document have to be drafted by what we call the préfet in charge of the coordination of each maritime front, which is basically consortium of local authorities. So here, this is the area of interest for the SIMCelt project, the coast of Brittany. The maritime strategy document has been, they have started work on this document with the first period of consultation, which aimed to realize an assessment of the ecological values and maritime use in this area. So what are the consequences for transboundary cooperation? So transboundary cooperation of MSP might be hampered by the difference in time frame in our plan-making processes, with the directive have been recently transposed into Irish law. In France, the transposition will be an ongoing process and will culminate with our Maritime Front document in 2018. On the contrary, the UK administration have already developed their common vision and objective for marine spatial planning, with plan already in force in England and Scotland and now soon in Wales. MSP is decentralized in UK and Ireland, and it is decentralized in France. There are, however, some potential for cross-border cooperation, in particular due to this common policy framework for all UK devolved administration, the UK Marine Policy Statement, that set the shared direction for the marine plan. UK administration also rely on this. The UK National Ecosystem Assessment that basically aim to inform decision-making and policy and planning by characterizing the ecosystem services and their value in the UK waters. It is a good baseline information for developing the maritime plan. So a concrete example of integrated transboundary MSP in the Celtic Sea is our case study in the SIMCelt project, Solway Firth. It's a single ecosystem between Scotland and England. Despite the existence of two pieces of legislation that regulate planning, Marine and Coastal Access Act in Scotland and the Marine Scotland Act in Scotland and the Marine and Coastal Access Act in England, Solway Firth has been designated single planning area, and a single plan will be developed under the Marine Policy Statement. There are still some challenge in this area however, in terms of coordination of data sharing. But here again, this is facilitated by the fact that Marine Scotland and Marine Management Organisation in England are both part of the Made-in Partnership, which aim to develop standardized methodologies for collating and storing marine data. Another challenge I just want to mention very quickly is that the Solway Firth Partnership collect data and incorporate this data into the Marine Scotland National Marine Plan Interactive. But the English data layers for the English side of the Solway Firth are not incorporated in this Scottish forum. So here the challenge is mostly related to the gaps in evidence in both sides of the border, and in the future this will make the case for a joint research exercise in the Solway Firth. So now I will let Joseph talk. So as you can see, there's some level of policy convergence between UK devolved administration and France and Ireland. So what I want to say is that in this context of unmatched time frame, institutional and legal arrangements, it's important to launch concrete cooperation to ensure a mutual understanding of our different framework for marine spatial planning. And this is what we intend to do for the SIMCelt project. Our objective is to deliver options for coherent practices for transboundary cooperation on MSP. So, Joseph, if you want to present the SIMCelt now.
Thank you, Celia. Okay, so my name is Joseph Ansong. So basically my role in this section of the presentation is to present to you the SIMCelt project, to explain to you what we want to do under SIMCelt. So you would say, what is SIMCelt? What is the SIMCelt word? So SIMCelt is basically about supporting the implementation of maritime spatial planning in the Celtic Sea. So Celia presented to us the differences in approaches. She also presented to us some of the challenges that we face in the Celtic Seas when it comes to cooperation for MSP. And this afternoon, I was listening to Professor Calado presenting to us the differences in knowledge when it comes to MSP in the various basins. So you realize that the Baltic Sea is ahead of us when it comes to marine spatial planning and the knowledge that they've been able to develop. So SIMCelt is basically a 2-year funded EU project. We have 7 partners, and it is being led by UCC Marel. Then we also have Marine Scotland, which is one of their planning authorities in Scotland. Then we also have DERA, which is the planning authority in North Ireland. Then we also have Marine Institute in Ireland, which is also supporting the marine spatial planning system implementation in Ireland itself. Then also Agence des Aires Marine Protégées, also in France. Then we also have SHORM, which specializes in data. Then also the University of Liverpool. So basically, SIMCelt is not supposed to come out with a marine plan. We are not looking at a pilot marine plan. What we are looking at is to share best practices and also methodologies for MSP. That is the main aim of SIMCelt in the area of technical aspect, in the scientific aspect, and also the social aspect of MSP. So the main question is, how do we bring all these nations together to foster MSP cooperation? And an African proverb says that to tie a good knot, you need to have a very good methodology, a very good way of tying it and untie it. Because at some point, you want to fix something in the knot. So if you don't know how to untie it, then it will be a problem. So we need very good strategy to kind of do that, to foster cooperation. And I just wanted to bring your mind to this as a conceptual idea of how we are seeing SIMCelt. Now, when it comes to MSP, basically, we are looking at 3 components, 3 elements. We are looking at the data aspect, the governance aspect, and also the stakeholder aspect of it. But however, when it comes to the transboundary aspects, it becomes complicated, as we've all experienced in MSP. Because at this point, you want to join data on one aspect of the country to another country, the data protocols. And this becomes very difficult, especially when you want to have MSP cooperation. Then how do you do that? It means you need some adjoining lines to connect them. And from the TP project, some of the experiences that was developed, it was found out that you need good communication. You need to acknowledge differences. You need to ensure negotiations and also harmonization, especially in terms of data. So not to waste time, I'll just go quickly into some of the components that we want to develop in SIMCelt. So let's say that this is SIMCelt, the human being represented here. And these are the various components that we want to develop under SIMCelt. So in the next few minutes, what I'm going to do is to go into each of these components to realize what we want to do as part of the project. So the first one is the initial assessment. And as part of the initial assessment, we want to analyze what is the existing situation in the Celtic Sea when it comes to the marine environment, when it comes to processes and approaches for MSP and past projects that has been implemented. What is the existing situation to kind of build on it for the other components to be developed. So basically, that's what's going to happen in the initial assessment to assess the existing situation. Then we come to component 2, which is supposed to look at various case studies. So one of the first case studies that we want to look at is to analyze the growth of offshore renewable energy and its impact on maritime traffic and maritime transport and also fisheries at a transboundary level. And this has not been undertaken in the Celtic Sea. So we are going to undertake a case study which is going to look at that. Then from our initial assessment, what we realized was that ecosystem service perspective and cumulative impact in terms of the methodology to implement it has not been fully looked at. And this was one of the even the recommendation by MMO that they came out with. So as part of this SIMCelt project, we are going to look at cumulative impact, how to understand cumulative impact, and also how to understand ecosystem services to MSP. And by this, we are going to use the ODEM approach to kind of look at this process for the Celtic Sea. Then another case study is supposed to look at soil effect, which Celia talked about. So in terms of having a coherent approach, now the UK on the side of the soil effect have their own planning system. So how do we bring these 2 planning approaches together to ensure that there is a coherent approach for this single ecosystem that we have in soil effect? So we are going to explore it in terms of how to plan across borders. Then one aspect which in many times has not been looked in marine spatial planning is about scenarios. So as part of the project, what we are going to do is to assess the existing demand in the Celtic Sea, the maritime sectors. What is the existing demand in terms of maritime sectors in the Celtic Seas? And these three maps represent some of the scenarios which were generated in the CSP, which is the Celtic Sea Partnership, which we are going to build on to come out with scenarios for planning for MSP. Then we also have a stakeholder aspect. So in terms of the initial assessment, one of the things that was realized was stakeholder fatigue, because stakeholders have been engaged a lot of times. They felt fatigued. So what are we going to do in terms of stakeholder approaches? We want to come out with innovative ways. How are we going to be innovative to engage stakeholders? And by this, we want to introduce the MSP challenge. So we would have the board game and we would have the electronic version. And the board game has already been produced and delivered. And you can see in this picture, there's the commissioner being introduced to the game at the Atlantic Stakeholder Conference. And some of the participants also engage in the whole process. So this tool is going to be applied in the Clyde Marine Planning Partnership. And I think Rona already mentioned this, that it's one of the partnerships that is supposed to develop a regional plan. So we are going to use this process to engage stakeholders and also get them involved in MSP to understand some of the elements and also the challenges that happens in MSP. So the fifth component, we are supposed to look at development of cooperation for MSP. In the existing system as it is, how do we develop MSP? How do we ensure that there's cooperation among the Celtic Sea states for MSP? So this component is basically going to look at the existing situation. What is the existing mechanism for MSP cooperation? And also come out with processes and approaches for ensuring that engagement and also cooperation is what furthered. Then we have a sixth component. So through the TP project, they were able to develop approaches for stakeholder evaluation, for plan evaluation, actually. So what we are going to do is to use this approach that was developed in the TP project to apply it to the existing plans. As plans are being developed, we have to start looking at how are we going to evaluate them. So we're going to use what was built on this existing project, which has already been completed, to look at how we can apply it to existing plans in the Celtic Seas as well. Then, for MSP projects, we also still need data, especially at the transboundary level. And therefore, we are going to build an existing marine spatial data infrastructure to come out with a portal, which will be very necessary and which meets the requirement for MSP. So not to talk much and to come down to the conclusions. What are we saying for the Celtic Sea and in terms of MSP cooperation? What we are saying is the MSP directive, the approach and the scope for transboundary cooperation under the MSP directive is left to member states to decide. It's not very specific on how member states should cooperate. Now, at the Celtic Sea level, you say that, okay, then there should be cooperation through OSPAR. But again, we have to understand that OSPAR exists at the regional level, which is a regional basin level, and Celtic Sea is a sub-basin level. So we need to explore existing institutions which can further cooperation for MSP. And these existing institutions, the geographical coverage, the level, and the remit, they vary in a lot of ways. Now, we can talk about the British Irish Council, which exists at a very high level and also does not include France. We can talk about the local agencies, which has very specific roles. Then we can even talk about OSPAR, which exists at a regional level. So how to ensure cooperation is still up for discussion. Then again, uncertainties exist. And when I was showing this at work, they were saying, I really need to go down into what are the uncertainties? How are you going to ensure cooperation? Is it through the SCA directive? And there are a lot of discussions about it, especially when the status of the UK in the EU is still up for discussion. So in the future, a lot of things are going to change in terms of how we look at fostering transboundary cooperation. Now, the desirable approach would be to look at the OSPAR and also ensuring that there is intergovernmental cooperation. But however, OSPAR at the moment is not really looking at MSP, and most of the work that they've done that relates to MSP has been in terms of marine assessments, actually. So what are we saying then? SIMCelt does not offer you a pilot plan. It does not offer you a binding process. But what it offers you is a pan-Celtic Sea perspective. in terms of methodologies for transboundary MSP. And that's what we seek to provide for the Celtic Seas, to come out with ideas, approaches, and methodologies, and support the implementation of MSP for the Celtic Seas, so that member states can pick up these approaches and also methodologies that were developed to support their plan in implementation. And with this, we say thank you for listening to us. And you can follow SIMCelt on Twitter over here. Thank you.
Thank you. And despite all the differences, we can say that there are some similarities with the Baltic SCOPE project. Actually, we have done in the Baltic Sea region actually the same, trying to find common ground for the countries which are in a different planning phases, different institutional setups and so on. So quite similar. But
you're not far behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, questions?
Continue what Talis said about the Baltic SCOPE project, because during the Baltic SCOPE process we tried to find out the limits. Where are the limits for the cooperation? Because there are limits. You know, it's I can't see that we will deliver standards, joint standards for the data exchange or joint standards for the planning, but what we can deliver is the recommendations. And then that was the conclusion out of the Baltic SCOPE, that the recommendation is the limit for the cooperation. You know, this is like, how do you think? So my question is, what's your
view on
this?
Yes, I think. How far you can go? Yeah. I think what we want to do as at this moment is to also come out with recommendation guidelines. That's how we call it, guidelines for fostering transborder cooperation. And I think through this process, as we are doing it, forming these case studies and components, I think we are fostering transborder cooperation as well. Then at the end, we can come out with recommendations about how to ensure that there is cooperation for MSP. Now, I can talk about the Celtic Sea Partnership Project, which has already come out with the Celtic Sea Declaration. So it's one way of pushing government to start thinking about cooperation for MSP, and even if not for MSP, about marine governance. So they are also developing some sort of cooperation and a declaration, so that they can go back to government to kind of push them to get into MSP and also MSP cooperation.
Okay, more questions?
Hello, I'm Eric. I'm working for the North Sea project, and the North Sea is quite unique because it already has a lot of maritime spatial plans, but there's not a lot of sharing between the plans. Not yet, but it's getting more and more. An important issue is data, and I think the Baltic Sea is way more advanced in data gathering and sharing data with, among all the members. And also in your presentation, there was something about a data portal. I was just wondering, what kind of portal is this? How do you get the data? How do you use it? How do you also continue to keep it updated? And is there something in the project, or is it like a long-term thing which is going on?
So, is it working? Yeah. Okay, so yes, I did mention the metadata portal. So that's just to say that work on data have been done already, but in the context of the Celtic Sea partnership, not in the context of the SIMCelt. But I will come back to the SIMCelt after. So this metadata portal is done in, as I said, in the framework of the Celtic Sea partnership to support the implementation of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. So it's just a portal that provides a source of data that are exclusively related to the MSFD descriptor. So that was a different thing, just to set the context of the Celtic Seas. Now for the SIMCelt project, the CHOM, which is the hydrographic service of the French Navy, will develop a portal for the SIMCelt project. So it is their task to collect data and to populate the portal for the SIMCelt project. So.
And this just recently started?
Yes.
Yes, they recently started. So it's going to be both a metadata and also the data itself. And
there will be a first demonstrator in January 2017.
Are they using the experience from the Baltic
Exactly.
Sea?
No, from already existing portals that was generated in the Celtic Seas.
Yeah.
So there was an overview of all the portals and they
Yeah.
Okay. More questions? If not, then thank you very much for this very comprehensive presentation. One additional comment or advertisement that the MSP Challenge game, which was presented in one of these slides, will be available tomorrow on a last session. It's masterclass on MSP development. So if you have not played it, please test it tomorrow. And now we are moving forward. We are moving forward to Croatia, which has long traditions on planning, spatial planning on the land and also on the sea. Please, Vesna.
My name is Vesna Marohnić-Kuzmanović. I come from Croatian Institute of Spatial Development. It's not on. The micro. Well, I will repeat. My name is Vesna Marohnić-Kuzmanović. I come from Croatia, from Croatian Institute for Spatial Development, and I'm going to present you some our experiences in MSP. So, the MSP in Croatia will be implemented through the spatial plans and through the physical planning system. Why so? As our colleague mentioned, we have a lot. Now it works. So we have a long experience with MSP in Croatia, and our physical system, physical planning system, includes all the sectors and all stakeholders which are concerned with MSP. So legal framework for our spatial planning system is relies on Physical Planning Act, and it set some goals, principles, actors in physical planning, spatial and physical planning monitoring, planning requirements, and two types of documents that are essential for spatial plans and for MSP. This is Spatial Development Strategy and Spatial Plans. Concerning the principles of physical planning, I would like to stress the integrated approach and horizontal and vertical integration, which are very important, especially for MSP. And the actors in physical planning, which had to make the system efficient and based on expertise. So it somehow implies what stakeholders are involved in the whole system. And the spatial plans are subordinate legislation, what means that the Croatian parliament or government or regional or local bodies adopt these plans. And what is also important, no building can be made in space without spatial plans. So this is also some kind what tells us about the importance of spatial plans. So physical planning system relies on territory division. So we have a regional governance of 20 counties and the city of Zagreb, which has a dual political sense, and local governance, 127 cities and 428 municipalities. This is quite a number of governments, of local governance to coordinate. So we have, in fact, 3 levels of spatial documents. This is a spatial development strategy. This is the fundamental national document for directing spatial development. And what is important, what is also determined by the law, is that sectoral strategies should be in line with the spatial development strategy. And we have spatial plans. This is the second level of documents in spatial planning. We have them on the state level, regional level, and local level. And the third part is the monitoring. So the territorial status reports at the state, regional, and local levels, they are revised every 4 years. And the spatial plans and the monitoring relies on a physical planning information system, which is somehow a portal with metadata and all the relevant data for spatial planning. This physical planning information system is interoperable and multi-platform system. It links information systems of all public law bodies. It somehow gives the public approach to spatial relevant data, and of course it helps in monitoring implementation of spatial plans and territorial status. What is also important for MSP, it will be the integrative factor, because we shall have plans on state, regional and local level, but through this physical planning information system we will have them all on one place. So this is how it will look, and you can also find it on the portal. And something about the spatial plan developing process. I would like to stress out these rough 3 phases. So it is preliminary phase, the phase of draft proposal, and the adopting one. The important thing is the decision on development, in which all public bodies are somehow involved with their requirements and opinions. And the other thing, the other phase where the public and the public bodies are involved is in public debate. And the parallel to this developing process is the SEA, which is under another regulation, and it is under responsibility of Ministry of Environment and Energy. So stakeholders in spatial plans development procedures are also given by the law, and we have them in, let's say, 2 or 3 levels. One level is the political one, the decision-making one. So the Croatian Parliament, the government of the Republic of Croatia, and the counties and municipalities are the bodies which adopt the plans, each on their level. So we involve a public and public consultations in the phase of public debate, and in the early phase when everybody can initiate the revision of spatial plans, but we don't have them in the decision-making, the real decision-making phase. So this is something what we shall have to deal with. So institutions in charge of MSP transposing into legislation and implementing will be Ministry of Construction and Physical Planning, Croatian Institute for Spatial Development at the state level, and physical planning institutes of the counties on the county level, and municipal spatial plans. So what do we have for MSP in use? We have MSP at state level in the main 2 strategic documents, physical planning strategy and physical planning program. They were made in 1997 and 1999, and they were revised in 2013, but only dealing with infrastructure. So at the state level, we have the main traffic lines in the maritime area, the main ports, the main infrastructure cables, and everything that concerns the state level decisions. So what happened? At the county level plans, we have the situation that they take everything from the state level and they add something that is important, or all things that are important for the county level. So we have several maps dealing with infrastructure, with cables, with traffic, and so when we overlap, then they all have to be in line. And the protection one. I forgot to mention that in our spatial planning heritage, we always had a strong ecological part. So this was always the integrative part of the spatial planning. So when EU legislative came, we somehow divided into two phases, but it was always the one phase. So at the local level, spatial plans, we go a level lower, and their primary scope is within 300 meters from the coastline. So these are some examples of two cities. So when I mentioned MSP heritage, I would like to mention the state spatial plan back to 1989, when we had the space purpose and use planning. So you can see what sea areas were looking like and what we dealt with in these plans. And another one, this is the same plan, but another graphic approach. So this is the infrastructure and transport. You can see what it was dealing with, and what I mentioned and pointed out, the environment protection, natural and building values, they were always the part of the spatial plans. So what are MSP further actions? We have the situation as we have, and now we have the EU legislation to be transposed into our legal framework and into our spatial plans. So decision is that we are not going to change our system, but we are going to adapt the EU requirements to our system. So there is a draft proposal of Physical Planning Act dealing with adjustment with EU directive, with FMSP. And so we shall keep the MSP at three levels: the state level spatial plans, the regional level, and the local level. But we will add two spatial plans: the spatial plan of continental shelf and the spatial plan of EFPZ or EEZ, whatever the government decides to do. Another thing is the scope of these two directives and the ICM protocol. We have transposed the ICM protocol, and in our Physical Building Act, we had somehow defined the protected coastal area as a territory of coastal cities and municipalities, and within this area we have the restricted area of 1 kilometer from coastline and 300 meters in the sea. And in these areas there are some restrictions dealing with building, dealing with activities prohibited or allowed. And especially in this restricted area, there are more restricted requirements. Local authorities involved are, as you see, I won't read it, you can see them, but I mentioned them because it somehow shows the difficulties in integrated management of this area. What we have in this sea area is, of course, what every country deals with. So these are the sectors, activities, and decisions that are to be made or that are already made. What we have as a special thing is this heritage and nature and landscape, which we would really like to preserve and to build the prosperity on these components. So tourism is one of the main economic activities, not only in the coastline but in the whole country. So transport is something that is bound to the sea activities. Energy, exploitation, aquaculture and fishery, this is also something that has to be somehow found a synergy and found a coexistence between all of these activities. And of course, this environmental component with pollutions of all kinds. So what are the adequate responses we are looking for is, of course, the proactive planning, integrated versus sectoral approach, then building the decision support tools, and of course finding the models of horizontal cooperation mechanism. We have them in laws, in regulations, but in situ it is something that is not so nice. So specific challenges of MSP in Croatia are well addressed to islands. We have a lot of islands and of course we have some problems dealing with it, so traffic isolation, poor interconnectivity, lack of social infrastructure and water supply, depopulation, and of course the issue I mentioned before. These are a great number of municipalities and local and regional governance. Pressures on coastal areas are mainly addressed to tourism and excessive urbanization, illegal construction, extreme seasonal demands. Protected areas concerning protected nature are also a great deal of territory. So this development in these areas are conditioned by protection requirements. And of course legal issues, maritime borders issues and maritime property boundaries. Maritime property boundaries is something that we can solve by ourselves, but maritime borders issues are a little bit more tricky between our country and former Yugoslav republics, Slovenia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro. So this will be a great challenge for transboundary cooperation to solve these problems. And having all this in mind and having all these challenges in front of us, we are involved in one project on MSP, a Supreme project, which is co-funded by European Union. And we as the Croatian Institute of Spatial Development are involved in it. So we shall be able to test all these challenges and all these issues on this project, and we shall try to build the experience and the experience of all the countries we heard today in our work. So we are preparing the spatial plan of the state and the spatial development strategy, which is expected to be adopted by the end of this year. So that would be all.
Oh, thank you. Give big applause. The questions? You already mentioned that there are challenges with the border issues regarding neighboring countries. What other challenges or prospects of cooperation with neighboring countries you see? With
these pilot projects and with these case studies, this is the future one I mentioned, but we had the former ones, ADRI plan in the northern part of Adriatic Sea. We try to see what challenges we shall have. So let's say fishery between Italy and Croatia is one of the main issues. And this cooperation dealing with the boundary issues is more in the northern and in the southern part. So this is somehow. And of course we have some cooperation when it is necessary. I mean when the underwater cables are in the question, and so I can't say there is no cooperation, but this is going to be a challenge.
Okay, any more questions? If not, then we note that also in a few years' time we will have another presentation about how far you are with your maritime spatial plan.
When we, sorry.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Maria from Serbia. I actually have a lot of questions for you, but no, it will be in
time.
private. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think this new project? How is it step further from the ADRI plan, or how you can compile the data with the ADRI plan?
Well, we should rely on the results of ADRI plan, because it would be well nonsense if we don't rely on them. But it will be the further step, because we are preparing the state plan of developments where we shall implement it. So it will not be only a study or some guidelines, but this will be the step to implementation of this case, of the results of this case study. So I think this is the difference, the first difference. The second difference is the stakeholder involved in ADRI plan was the city of Rijeka. And they didn't have, well, it is too heavy to say authority, but they didn't have all the instruments that we have, and the ministry which is behind us. I mean, with some spatial standards and with some decisions to be made. So I think it will be the improvement and the step forward. And it is also the location. We chose the most southern county, Dubrovnik county, and it has a lot of challenges that we didn't have in the northern part of Adriatic.
Yeah, what I can say in support to my study is that it's important how you are choosing stakeholders involved, especially for Croatia. It's without ministries is hardly possible to enforce something. But are you planning to involve Bosnia and Montenegro later in this plan?
Yes, later on, of course. When when we shall prepare the state plan, they will be involved, of course. And if nothing else, then through the CEA.
Thank you. We'll continue.
Thank you very much again. And now we are coming to the last presentation. It's about host country Latvia. And I would like to invite Kristina for presenting Latvian MSP case.
Hello, everybody. Knowing that I will be probably from those attending this session the last voice to hear this day, I try to be simple and not including a lot of complicated things. So this is will be a brief introduction to how we got to our draft MSP and what was some kind of successes and what was some kind of findings. So first of all, I would like to start with the general time frame. We can see that the most job was done during 2015 and in first half of this year. I remember that 2 years ago we had the first Baltic MSP Forum, and we thought that we are so in preparation phase and everything is clear how we will move on, but apparently it was not so. So by this time we had already established our national working group, which is actually responsible for all the sector institutions, and we do discuss all the decisions made for the MSP and all the solutions with them. So during this process we have had, their involvement was the most important from the sectoral point of view. So this is a very brief overview. We have had this process since the beginning of 2015, and we are still ongoing with the implementation phase discussion, like we are still discussing how to implement this. Taking into account the colleagues from Croatia, they have different levels. For MSP, we have only one level for now. Everything will be done on a national level. Our MSP includes both territorial waters and EEZ, and also internal marine waters. But recently, since 2015, we have a possibility for municipalities to plan 2 kilometers from the coast together with their local plans in order to better implement their, their actions and things they should do. That mostly concerns probably tourism and some kind of port developments and so on. So just to indicate some of the interesting methods we have had, this is some problem, I think. Yeah. Okay. You know, ecosystem-based approach. It's a kind of a topic for everybody, and how to implement it's quite a big question. One of our main achievements within the process was that we used the mapping of ecosystem services. I have some kind of bug in the presentation, but we started with the regulation and maintenance services, which is actually based on the benthic biotopes, which is the basis of all the ecosystem operation. That's the map behind. I'm sorry about that. We used the HELCOM classification to really for the benthic habitats, and that was the basis for this exercise. Then, to understand the ecosystem services better, we added some provisioning services, which actually includes the services you can economically estimate. Those are the fish that is being catched for the use, and those are red algae, which is potentially used as a for biotechnologies or medicine, and that's the potential we can also somehow calculate. And then on the upper side, it's the cultural services, which is actually estimated from the coastal side. Those include tourism, which is also somehow economically valuable, and also some kind of landscape value. So these 4 maps are mapping those aspects, just for us to understand how to move on with the exact uses further on. So here we come to the designation of priorities. I try to illustrate fast and easy how we came to the solutions of the plan. There was this social, economic, and environmental impact assessment, which is a standard procedure as CIA procedure. We had used these ecosystem services to analyze the possibilities of uses, their impact on these aspects. And one of our other method was scenarios method, which was used for involvement of the sector, stakeholders, and general public by using the extreme scenarios and trying to get out of them their opinion about how the development of the sea could actually be moving on. By adding to this the theoretical criteria for use of the sea, for example, we know which uses goes together and which does not, and taking into account that we have some strategic part of the MSP which includes our long-term objectives, Our horizontal objectives, of course, are good environmental status, national security. We, of course, include such as specific or not specific, but important things as sustainable fisheries and healthy fish stock. We include also sustainable and clean shipping, and also tourism as a part of the blue growth. And then, taking that all into account, we came to the spatial solution. We include our planned uses in 3 categories. The most important is the areas of priority interests, which actually states the sectoral interest in the sea. Those are shipping areas, those are military training areas, those are environmental values, and also fishery areas and tourism areas. Then we have used all the available information and expert knowledge to designate the areas for potential developments. That's the wind park, that's aquaculture, and also perspective areas for wave energy, which is still under very big question mark. And then there are the other types of already existing uses and types of the sea take and the areas of general use. Altogether, it looks like this. The white places are the ones that everything is allowed. The bigger zones are the priority interests or the potential areas of development, and there are, of course, the existing situation which is taking place there and will be there. But just briefly to maybe introduce to each sector, we start with the shipping, because within our national process we understood that this is actually our main stakeholder. They have a historical right for the sea, and they have, of course, UNCLOS that allows them to ship wherever they want, and that's a strong argument. But working together with them, we came to a solution that we are not taking ACE data as the only criteria for designation of the shipping priority. We also contacted all the ports to understand what are the development needs for the future and how they see where should their development and trade go to which direction. So this is what came out from the stakeholder involvement. Then another very important sector is fisheries. Here we did a lot of data collection. We have gathered 10-year data from paper journals and produced maps, which was a very good basis for decision taking. But speaking with the sector, we understood that the most important thing, or spatially important thing, is the bottom trawling, because they are dependent from potential new structures, and this is why we, when designating important areas for fisheries, we designated the areas where the bottom trawling takes the most activity, because the other shipping, as you can see in the not working in the upper side, it's taking place in the most of the sea, the pelagic fishery. What concerns the nature values and investigation of the new nature values, we have established 4 new places in our MSP that should be potentially investigated in order to find some new MPAs, for example. We have a very small information of that. So currently there are some works ongoing. You can see in the middle map the number 4. Some field works have been done, and there are some kind of, I hope soon, some information available as well. But you can see that according to the last map, these 4 areas designated in our MSP, we have no information about them. We designated them only based on bathymetric data. Those are middle, like shallow banks, and there is a possibility for very valuable biotopes. And while these territories are not investigated, if someone wants to do something there, that's a national priority. We ask them to first investigate environmental values. And if there is some, according to the plan, he should not do his economic activity there. Yeah. Then there is the tourism. For tourism, we had another process going on together with MSP. We had our national thematic plan for the coastal area ongoing, which actually designated the places and really, how to say, bottom-up approach for coastal infrastructure. And we had good investigations there according to the means of tourism in the coastal area, according to what is the economic benefit from that, what is the overall people attending coastal areas. So this is 4 million per year in Latvia, only the coastal area, the beach. And so that's why we also indicated these valuable areas in the MSP. Those are the places here with the blue color, where the biggest, how to say, anthropogenic pressure is and the most attraction sites are. So this is one more. And then we had quite a discussion about potential offshore energy extraction or exploration. Taking into account that we are still developing our internal grid and it's not strong enough, we have planned up to 2030. Only 2 places, you can see the blue ones, 3 places, which could be up to 800 megawatts production of the offshore wind farms. And here we can we suggested the best suitable territories according to the grid expansion, according to the depths, and according to the wind power. But we also took into account the other priority uses we have established before. So this come out a little bit. So, what concerns the aquaculture, which is also a potential new use, here we have designated some suitable places together with our Fisheries Institute, as our Riga Gulf is very sensitive for biogenic mass and also has quite a lot of freshwater inflow. Our scientists within this process suggested us not to have the fish aquaculture in the Gulf, as this is not very good to the environment. Mostly the same applies to the coast of the Kurzeme, it's the western coast. There is one possible way that the fish aquaculture could be introduced, but that is just according to the available information on the physical and chemical, how to say, parameters of the sea. So, and an upper, that's an upper map, and in the lower map you can see that we have so far actually done a national, or Ministry of Agriculture have done a national tender for the aquacultural sites. And it was quite a big discussion from the NGOs and environmental part, because as you can see, in the most of the places are in the Gulf of Riga, which is not very environmental friendly. And in the end, there was no one who attended for this tender. So this is done. And now we will use the suggested areas before moving on. So this is very briefly, I think I don't really think I have more time. But yes, I can ask you to use the opportunity. We have some info sheets at the Baltic SCOPE table. According to each sector, its development aims and goals, and how the zoning was made. So yeah, that's briefly it. Thank you.
So, and there's also opportunity not to have only paper sheets, but also presenter answering questions, and also Inguna, who was in charge of the MSP in Latvia and still is. You can ask some questions, please.
Thank you so much for the presentation. So now I know much better about Latvian plan. This summer, when we were together with also Talis in Lithuania, in Klaipėda, we talked about Lithuanian plan and Latvian plan. And then there is a Lithuanian plan which is already published, and there are some plans. They have offshore energy platforms, plans, and everything is on the table as a concrete plan, and Latvia is still in the process. And then with Eric, we were discussing the possible outcomes and the future conflicts that can create these plans, because the coastline is like next to each other and all the plans are affecting the other country. So what do you think about the future of transboundary relationship of Latvia and Lithuania? Thank you very much.
That's a very good question. Yeah.
Painful question.
Painful question, maybe. Yeah. We have worked together with them when preparing our solution, because we have went in the very early phase to Lithuania to talk about our initial aspects of the planning, the stock taking we have made, the potentials of the scenarios, and what do they think, and we have done that before. And we have also discussed them on the solutions, of course. But how to say, we don't see significant problems with Lithuania so far, because their approach is more strategic, and we do know that they will prepare some kind of update for their national plan, which is including the sea, very soon. So we still see that maybe then we will be in the position that we are have adopted plan, and they will update their plan. So we never know. But so far, yeah, maybe Inguna has something.
I just wanted to add that yes, there is an solved issue between Lithuania and Latvia. There is no border agreement. This is like not finally agreed by Latvian government, and there is a possible oil extraction site in between us, and that's why there is a governmental work group, and they are going to make an agreement between the countries. So that's the point.
Okay, so oil exploration.
Yeah.
And then also there's this safe passage for the transportation, and then maybe if Lithuania creates a port on the border of Latvia, and this site is, I think, intrinsically important or naturally important for Latvia. So I don't know, when we see these issues, we saw that, okay, maybe there can be a little bit future conflicts. Like, and okay, so you say that there are some organizations who are discussing about this, right?
Yeah, but this is the on particular issue only. This is not about everything, yeah. So, but what we can see, how it can go, those could be bilateral discussion between the countries when something will come up. Okay.
Okay, more questions? Yes.
Just a quick one, just for my information, actually. Can you just specify on some of the transborder cooperations and activities that you had with other nations whilst developing the plan?
We tried to do our best. We did close cooperation actually during the Baltic SCOPE project, because it came into the solutions phase, so our solutions, planning solutions phase, and we had quite a good opportunity to talk it over with Estonia and Sweden. But we used the official ESPO convention, framework to consult Sweden, Lithuania, and Estonia. So we have had 2 official visits to the countries neighboring us, like Lithuania and Estonia, not Sweden, but we have done this discussion also in 2 phases, in the very early phases when we just were thinking how we will develop our plan, and the other one was on the first draft already, when we had some kind of solutions that they could see how they would be implicated, to them.
To which extent the result of the Baltic SCOPE will influence planning in Latvia, the final marine special plan?
That's a very good question. We are not done yet, neither with Baltic SCOPE, neither with our national plan. But we for sure know that the Baltic SCOPE has added the transboundary thinking to our sector stakeholders, which is good. Because for most of the sectors, before involving them into the stakeholder meetings we had in Baltic SCOPE, they were thinking only national, not across the borders. But now their thinking is a little bit wider, and we hope that this will be included. we think so. Yeah.
Okay, sounds very nice. Do you have any more questions? Maybe not questions, but observations or some concluding remarks to all this what we had today?
You want to go? Okay, I think for me it's interesting to realize some of the approaches that is being developed in the various countries for MSP and to serve as learning lessons for the Celtic Sea as we also develop in our project. So it was interesting to realize the various approaches in Croatia, what is happening in the Basque country, and also what is happening in Latvia. And I'm glad to hear that for the Latvia planning process, they engaged with them earlier at an early stage than after, again, when the draft was already developed. And I think for us, it could be a lesson for planning authorities to engage with nations that they are bordering with early in the planning process and after they've also come out with a draft plan to foster cross-border cooperation for MSP.
Using this opportunity, I would like to advertise guidelines what we have Helcom VASAB working group on transboundary consultation and cooperation, which actually says exactly this, that at the earliest possible stage to have this consultation process.
A last remark and question to the whole assembly, especially to German people. So, I don't know, you're not German? You're Dutch? Oh, okay. No, I just have a...
But we have also Germans here.
Germans. I just have a... through the different projects in the Baltic Sea, and like a good example of the Baltic SCOPE, my question is more like, for countries like Germany, who are already well advanced in their planning, they already have a plan, how does cooperation work into practice with other countries who are just developing, just starting their planning process? And if cooperation is working, how Germany incorporate the outcome of this cooperation in your plan, because you already have a plan. I don't know if you get me. Yeah? Cool, thanks.
Thanks. I mean, it is a very good question, and I mean, the German maritime spatial plans are from 2009, and they've been in force. But on the other hand, we will probably start next year the second round of our plans, and I think that will be very much informed of the outcome of Baltic SCOPE. But if you ask for concrete examples, I mean, in certain ways we're locked into our plan, right? If we have already acted on the plan and started building wind farms, there's really not that much you can do to change them anymore. In other areas, there's still a lot of planning cooperation possible, like if you look at marine protected areas and you know, even doing things like applying the ecosystem-based approach with data from other countries to you know, to go around things, in particular things that have not been covered by the first plan, because the first plan in Germany was very much focused on shipping and wind farms, right? I will admit freely that will be hard to change any of the hard provision, the set provisions of the first plan, especially when it comes to siting wind farms and probably also shipping routes. That will not be very easy, you know, but we will try to work to align with our partners in the Baltic.
So to conclude, there is some benefit from working together with less developed countries. Okay, with this very nice conclusion, I would like to conclude our working session and once again thank all the presenters for preparation and for having these very thorough presentations. We have also tomorrow a lot to watch and think and discuss. And today we will have nice dinner and reception, and the buses will be waiting us downstairs 6:30. So looking forward to see you all in the evening. Thank you.